We're live. I'm Michael Millerman, and this is Millerman Talks. It's my distinct privilege and pleasure today to welcome the Russian political philosopher Aleksandr Dugin to the show. Professor Dugin, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
There's so much that I'd like to talk to you about, and there's so much that I know people want to hear from you.
Thank you very much.
But it seems fitting, first of all, to give you a chance to say something about a person who, from what I can tell, is so important for you and your work. Yesterday, May 26th, was the 45th anniversary of the death of Martin Heidegger. I would like you to take a moment to say who Heidegger is for you and what people should know about why he helps us to understand not only philosophy, but contemporary politics as well.
So, first of all, I think that Heidegger, for me, is a point of entrance, the point of the kind of gate to the philosophy. Philosophy is the world, and more than the world. It's something much more important than the world, because philosophy has in itself the world, entire world, and more than that, just as one of the possibility. And Heidegger has given to me personally, and I think to the old of philosophically conscious generation of the thinkers, the kind of possibility, a door to this universum, philosophical universum. So I consider Heidegger as many other says also as the prince of the philosophers. There is the unquestionable king of philosophers, Plato, and his legacy and his rule, his power, his intellectual magnitude is a kind of unprecedented, and nobody could compare with him. So he is in the beginning of the philosophy, at least of the Western philosophy, and he is the king. And he is the beginning, and Heidegger is the prince. I think he is the second after Plato and Aristotle. Plato and Aristotle, the thinkers of the beginning. I think that Heidegger was the main thinker of the end. And between Heidegger on one hand, on one side, and Plato and Aristotle as well on the other side, there is all the history of the philosophical thought explicitly rendered in clear concepts and words in Greek in the beginning, in German in the end. So I consider the Heidegger not just one of the philosophers. He is philosopher par excellence, the thinker of the end of being at in the end of time of the history. And for myself personally, he is as well one of the leading, maybe the more important access to understanding of everything inside of politics, and by extension understanding of everything else, because everything else depends from philosophy. Philosophy is just a kind of paradigm of everything, of knowledge, of man, of politics, of society, of anthropology, of cosmology, of physics, of metaphysics. Everything has its roots and its sources inside of philosophy. And Heidegger is god of this philosophical universe precisely in the time of the end, and the eschatological moment of the history of being, Seinsgeschichte.
Now, many of the people who will be watching this with an interest in philosophy and political theory will wonder, I think, how for you Heidegger and Plato, besides being philosophers par excellence can coexist as models for your political understanding. If, after all, there's a fundamental tension, or so it seems, between how they think about the nature of philosophical life and the character of political Platonism on one hand, or Platonic political philosophy on one hand, and a Heideggerian approach to politics that wants to overcome and go through the dark night, come out the other side, have another beginning. So, to give you an example that I know some of the people watching will be able to relate to, Leo Strauss, a figure who's very important to me, he sought to understand the crisis of the West and the crisis of Western civilization. And like you, to a certain extent, he went with Heidegger back to Plato and Aristotle. Heidegger gave him access to Plato and Aristotle, but he felt that we need to stop with Plato, so to speak, or recover a more complete understanding of Plato than we've had before. Whereas Heidegger himself, it seems, tries to go beyond Plato, to overcome Plato, to put Plato into his position in a history of being that Plato himself doesn't share or grasp in that way. So how do you see the relationship between the fundamental incompatibility, if there is one, between Heidegger and Plato, and its meaning for your political theory and political thinking?
Formally, I would say there is obviously, for the people knowing at least a small pieces of the thought of the work of Martin Heidegger, is clear that he was very critical toward Plato. He has dedicated to this criticism of Plato the main amount of his writings. He followed Nietzsche, and that he understood very well why Nietzsche was anti-Platonist and anti-Christian by extension, because Nietzsche and Heidegger repeated that, considered Christianity to be the Platonism for the masses. So it is obvious on the surface that there is a kind of opposition between Platonism and Heideggerian opposition and the philosophy. But there is some interesting point. So we could speak about that. That is really important from many angles, from many perspectives. First of all, maybe not most important, but I think it's very it is that is one of the certain central point in understanding of the relation and correlation between Plato and Heidegger. It is precisely that before to exist in the philosophy, because to be inside of philosophical universe, we need to a point of access, we need to enter. And it is not so easy. It is totally closed fortress, castle, a philosophical castle without doors. And the main task of the beginner in the philosophy is to resolve this apparent contradiction. How to get inside of the castle where there is no room, no door, where there is no door, there is no accesses. So you need to enter something that is totally hermetically closed. So that is interesting point. So and that is not banal problem. And I consider that Heidegger, in our time, in our moment of the history of the being, is precisely this paradoxal entrance. He shows us there is no access in the traditional way to the castle, because traditional doors, traditional gates are closed. They don't exist anymore. So they are just painted on the wall. We could not enter through them. They are simulacrum of the gates and the doors. They just painted object on the totally impermeable walls of the philosophical castle. So that is important, because in the place where the logos in the Platonic or nous in the Platonic meaning was, there is nothing. So there is no traditional possibility to enter in the temple of the philosophy, because we have lost the horizon, we have lost the sight of it. So we just have hallucinations, pretending to deal with the philosophy, but there is no more philosophy, there is no more being, because we have forgotten the being and dealing with logos. We are dealing with something else, we are dealing with nothing. So first of all, Heidegger teaches us to get into the heart of the reality. If there is no logos, Platonic logos, if it is forgotten, if it is destroyed, if God is dead, no reason to pretend he's still alive. The God, the logos, the transcendental metaphysical dimension of the being is destroyed by modernity, is totally forgotten by all the phases of this modern part of history of being, and that is the main truth. There is no God. That is the main truth. There is just a nothing. And all the pretension not to remark that, to affirm that everything is quite all right, and we have traditional way to access, for example, Platonic temple or castle, it is all false. And Heidegger, in the tragical way, as well as Nietzsche in the tragic way, they have emphasized this impossibility. So there is something inside of being itself that was hidden, that was left us, that has abandoned us, as well as we have abandoned the being. So there is mutual process. Not only people's culture, humanity has forgotten or killed the God, and in some way God has forgotten humanity. And not only we have lost the sight of being itself has lost the sight of us. So that is mutual. That is a kind of divorce. So we are not on the same wave with being. We are outside, and being is outside as well. And that is the tragedy of present moment, nihilistic moment of the philosophy. And I think that Heidegger is very, very sincere in that. He could not tolerate to say things metaphysically unverified, and his experience, the deepest experience of philosophy, of questioning of being, has shown to him that there is nothing. So around us, we are living in the center of the nothing. And that is why traditional response, the kind of Platonic response, that there is always being in the center or above this world of becoming was not enough. But precisely with this negation of Plato, we can, with Heidegger, enter in the philosophy, because with affirmation of Plato, we could not get there. There is not the chance. The prince of the philosophy, the prince among philosophers, he guards the only one access to the cosmos of the wisdom left to us, and that is very cruel and brutal access. It is the kind of gate of nothing, the gate of abyss. That is the only way to get inside of this castle. And that is not glorification of Plato as if nothing has happened. Something has happened with being, with us, with the history. And Heidegger is a kind of testimony. He's witness of this something has happened, something went wrong. He tried to discover when it went wrong, from what point it went wrong, and his response is paradoxal. Everything went wrong from very beginning. The beginning is a kind of guilty. The guilt is on the beginning. So the end is embedded in the beginning, and the beginning is the beginning of the end. And we are living at the end of the beginning. And hence, we could transform this tragic affirmation of the ending end of the first beginning into the new beginning. And Heidegger didn't just discard metaphysics. He tried to establish metaphysics in the concrete phenomenological experience in existence. So metaphysics should be alive, should be living thing, living creature, living entity for him, living being. And so, and that is fundamental, his project of creation of fundamental ontology, not negation, just nihilistic negation of ontology, but putting in the center of the attention, metaphysical attention, the necessity to rediscover transcendental, metaphysical, ontological dimension where it wasn't a search, where nobody had idea to look in order to seek and to find it. So outside of traditional limits of the platonically organized philosophical universe, Heidegger tried to discover, to find this this fundamental ontology, his version of a new beginning. And I think that is why, precisely as you have said, the knowledge of the Heidegger was a leading path to the Plato, not only for Leo Strauss, but as well for the thinker and philosopher that I consider to be one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, for Henri Corbin. That is interesting. Henri Corbin, who was the first translator of the parts of the Zeinun site into the French, and he was a kind of disciple of pupil of Heidegger. He was at the same time Heideggerian, and that has defined his phenomenological approach to the study of Islamic tradition, and above all of Islamic esotericism, Iranian esotericism, and mystical part of the Islamic tradition. But as well, he was totally and radically Platonic. So for people who enter with Heidegger and through Heidegger and with the help of Heidegger inside of universal philosophy, there is no contradiction between prince and the king. Prince is other than king, but they are not. They don't belong to the two totally contradictory camps. They belong to the same universe. And Plato is the philosopher of the beginning, and the Heidegger is the philosopher of end. Between them, there is a kind of tie, maybe not so evident if we consider only formal surface of the things, but we could feel it getting inside of all the universe of Heideggerianism.
So you've placed Heidegger at the heart of your project of the fourth political theory. That comes across from what you've said here, as well as Plato, from what you've said here, from what you write in your books, and from your many volumes on Heidegger and lectures and presentations on Plato as well. So I want to ask you, it's been about 10 years, plus or minus, since your book, The Fourth Political Theory, came out in English. It's been about 9 years. And I think in Russian, it came out 2009. And that seems to have injected the idea of a Heideggerian and Platonic solution to the problem of contemporary liberalism right at the center of things for you, to a large public audience. Can you reflect on what that time has been like for you since the publication of The Fourth Political Theory, both in English and in Russian? because you've been at the center of many developments in geopolitics and politics and ideology, in philosophy, of course, with your lecture courses. And I would like to just know from you, how do you see the accomplishments of the Fourth Political Theory Project so far? How does it stand today in your view? And what are its prospects and its challenges moving forward?
So, first of all, I think that force political theory we could not measure by the classical public relations measures. So it is not about success. It is not about promotion. It's not about the numbers of copies sold or great the number of views. So I think that from this point of view, my books, my texts on force political theory are not too successful but at the same time, quantitative measures we could, for example, recall here. This book is translated almost in all languages, in the European languages, in Eastern languages, in Turk and Arab, in Persian, in almost all European languages, and published not by my own efforts, but by the interest provoked by the text, by the idea. So that is.
There's been a very enthusiastic, spontaneous reception in the right circles. That's what it seems like. That was the case when I first became acquainted with your text. You and I had no previous communication before then. There was no Eurasian mission or arm of the Eurasian youth movement. It was just ideas that resonated and helped me to make sense of the world I was in philosophically and politically. And it seems like that's been happening everywhere. You have readers and groups in Iran and Brazil who are picking up the work in this way. So I just wanted to point out that spontaneous reception is an interesting phenomenon.
Yes, it was absolutely spontaneous. I didn't make any efforts in order artificially to push that. That was precisely as you have said. That was a kind of spontaneous interest provoked by the meaning of the ideas, not by the form of presentation. The main idea of force political theory corresponded to something that everybody waited for. And that is why it has spread around the world. For example, in all the Latin America now, there are in all countries, without no exception, including in the smallest countries of Latin America, now are groups, maybe limited groups, maybe sometimes very large groups of people who are very enthusiastic in promotion and developing and studying force political theory. There are also, for example, not only in Latin America, in Italy, the people, most of all young people interested in that, already have put the course and the curriculum in the normal education and the master program studying of force political theory, its arguments, its weak and strong points. So that begins to be institutionalized already. But all that is on the relative small scale. There are everywhere there are groups, everywhere there are people who are interested, but at the same time it is not like Capital of Marx. It's just it is comparable with the beginning of the Marxism, but there were some socialist communist group exchanging the ideas, but not yet the full-scale worker class movement for political theory, but it is coming in that direction. But what is interesting, who has appreciated really force political theory, that were liberals. So liberals has taken the challenge of force political theory very seriously from very beginning, from the first formulations, because they have seen in that the real danger. So they started immediately censor, cancel, demonize it. So they began the huge campaign of demonization of myself, of forced political theory, and against the clear, logical, almost mathematical explanation that forced political theory, it is not third political theory, it is not fascism in no way, or new reivindication of the nationalism or something like that. It is totally different frame, because it is absolutely critical toward nationalism, toward socialism, and toward liberalism. So, and against that, because liberals have no space in their theoretical field of knowledge for something that could be anti-liberal, and forced political theory is anti-liberal, but not communist, neither communist nor fascist. That provoked a kind of a collapse on psychotic catastrophe. So I think that is about something psychological and deep psychology of liberals. They have no place. They didn't reserve the place for something like that. And when something like that appears, they are in panic. So the forced political theory is the moment of panic for the serious liberal establishment, and they have reacted against forced political theory as if it was, for example, Third Reich already established Stalinist empire with my ideas, in the case of Putin already in the place. So they started to react as if this small amount of philosophical concepts have already been fulfilled, realized on the full scale as a civilizational phenomenon. So reaction was huge. Amazon refused to sell forced political theory. My YouTube account, my Twitter account, everything was totally destroyed, precisely for no criminal action, for no advocating for something racially hatred. So I'm mostly feminist, I'm humanist, I'm in favor absolute freedom of the human person. So I have nothing criminal inside my writing, and some very criminal writings are circulating freely in all this media. But my innocent theoretical philosophical teaching, lecturing, and texts, they are cancelled, they are censored in a very severe way. And at the same time, I don't represent neither Putin nor some serious political movements, nor party, nor country. I represent ideas, and I think my most serious, interesting, and deep readers and followers are liberals. They are really frightened, and that is why I'm called by them the most dangerous philosopher. And they repeat and repeat, not only for some political purposes. Now they could not hit nobody with that. That's totally useless to continue that. But they still use that name that I consider to be correct. But I am very grateful for liberals for the recognition of the real meaning, a real dimension of my thought, and that helps to spread forced political theory with this total and radical demonization in the Western liberal world. That helps to spread the ideas and to get to India, to the last corners of of the worlds where they are growing. For example, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in different parts of the world, there are groups of people more and more and more interested in force political theory, because force political theory is a kind of radical criticism of everything liberal, but with clear and radical rejection of communism and fascism, all form of communism and socialism, and all form of nationalism and fascism and racism above all. I really hate racism. I think that we could not create a kind of hierarchy between societies, cultures, peoples, and we should scientifically accept this difference without creating hierarchy. That is one of the main points of my political and philosophical attitude, and that may be difference with Heidegger as well. So I strongly believe in a pluriversal structure of the human cultures.
About the liberal reception of your book, there's so much there and not just about your book, but about the idea of the fourth political theory and the associated ideas. It's amazing because a lot of people come to me and ask me about you. I have done a lot of work on your thought. I've translated many of your books, published about you. And so it's natural that when people want to learn more about you, in some cases, they come and talk to me about it. And when I tell people the basic idea, or when they're first introduced to the most elementary presentation of the fourth political theory as neither liberal nor communist nor fascist, or as anti-liberal, but also anti-liberal, also anti-fascist and anti-communist, there's two responses. For some people, it's an instant awakening moment that there can possibly be something to think about that is neither liberal, communist, nor fascist. And some people have the response you wrote about in your book, that they want to open a bottle of champagne to celebrate the discovery of new possibilities. I had a conversation like that just yesterday. And for other people, the conversation stops there. The anti-liberalism is absolutely the sticking point. The immediate recourse to the accusation that you're a communist or a fascist or a national Bolshevist or a red-brown or everything else you can imagine gets imposed on that model. And what's so incredible to me is that is just, even though it's a powerful and profound idea, there's so much more going on in the fourth political theory than that. And the conversation very rarely gets down into all of the substantive, philosophical, ethno-sociological, theological, mystical in some sense, phenomenological aspects of your thought, which is a whole undiscovered territory. It's incredible what's there. And yet we are at the point in the discourse with academics and with cultural critics and with intellectuals that only the very first idea is the sticking point, either for or against. So it's just an amazing thing to observe. I was at the University of Toronto doing my PhD, as you know, and as some of the listeners know, when I had 4 committee members resign largely over my work on your thought. Now, they were all liberals, let's say, and none of them had any interest in your phenomenological readings of Aristotle. They were not aware of any such courses. They didn't know that you have books on structural sociology, on Gilbert Durand. They didn't know, and they didn't care, because it was enough to say anti-liberal. That's it. Automatically, end of story, no more discussion, which in academic circles is really, in my mind, amazing. You captured something about the structural poverty and the structural possibilities of ideological and philosophical discourse. So it's a truly amazing situation. And the fact that you've been banned from YouTube, it really deprived serious students of your thought of easy access to your lectures on phenomenology. I tell everybody about your course on the phenomenological readings of Aristotle because I thought it was so good, and about other things that you work on. So how are you experiencing this technological lockdown of modes of education? And I mean, being shut off YouTube is a big one, because here we are talking, but your whole channel, which had hours and hours and tens of hours and probably hundreds of hours of lecture material, was just canceled. So what do you see as the possibilities for education moving forward, both in academia and in independent institutions of learning, online institutions of learning? And in general, what for you is the role of education and the meaning of the educator? Because I know that's a big part of what you do and what you defend.
We could divide your questions in some groups. First of all, I like the first point of your speech, where you have said that the main problem, it is precisely in the possibility to accept something that could exist outside of capital of liberalism, and as well outside of two modern European alternatives, historical alternatives in the field of political theory to liberalism and the modernity, fascism and socialism. So that is a point, very important point. I think that is the main point of forced political theory. It is a point of access. That is the gate. That is the door. So precisely, some people can enter, and if they enter, they are in the totally new universe, in totally new balance of the ideas, of the concepts, of the theories, of the attitudes, of the paradigms, or of the terms, of the scientific processes, in totally different realm. They are in a different world. It's the world of the fourth political theory that just begin with this invitation. If you receive, if you accept, everybody, every reader of fourth political theory, of any people who addresses yourself or the other people who represent some fundamental and long-standing interest for such kind of ideas, that is the moment, the most important moment, a kind of initiation and the ethnological tradition, initiation, or you enter or you get out or you stay out. So if you enter, you are in totally new reality where the not only liberal dogmas cease to exist, but all philosophical tradition of the modernity, starting from the nominalism, starting from maybe ancient Greek atomism, starting from Epicurus, starting from Lucretius, starting from naturalist, atomist, materialist, nominalist, individualist tendency in the Western culture, all that, and all the dogmas of modern science, except maybe the last development of the postmodern science, that is another question. But all the universe of the modernity is collapsed immediately on the other side of the gate of the fourth political theory. That is important experience. And people who get out, who say, "Oh no, that should be just hidden fascism, or kind of form the new form of revanchism of Russian imperialist nationalists and so on. That is the Putin's propagandist trick and so on." They are serious. They feel the fear. They feel the real angst. They feel existential danger there, because coming a little further, coming through the gates of forced political theory, continuing my metaphor with Heidegger. So I'm staying in front of the painted door on the totally closed and wall that seems to be impenetrable, so very solid. And I invite the people, let's try. It is not just a wall. Let's try. You don't see the real door. You don't see the gate, but try. Let's try to get through, and you will discover other dimension. And only brave or desperate ones, they accept that, and they discover on the other side. That is really so. That is the door, and nothing ends here in this point. Everything on this strong, this whole, this threshold. Everything begins, but in other way, without some radical dogmatism that is left on this side of the wall. So that is invitation to make a leap, metaphysical, philosophical leap through this wall and get inside of totally new universe. So that is, I think, the most important thing. Not only who are in agreement with force political theory. It is not just some radical far-right thinkers. At times there are like them. There are sometimes, and more in the recent time, far-left thinkers. They discover force political theory with great astonishment for them. Some anarchists, some atypical political or ideological philosophical figures, or maybe those who tried from before force political theory to unite far left and far right. There is as well this national Bolshevist field or group of people, but that is not so important with what they start to enter in the force political theory. Much more important, as you have justly said and emphasized, what is beyond the entrance, beyond the gates, because there is rediscovery of all history of Western and not only Western human thought, because we could get access to totally new reading of all the authors, all the schools, all the tendencies that we already thought as something granted. So, for example, what can we say new about Brentano or Husserl or phenomenology? It seems that everything is already said. But if you enter in this metaphysical, marvelous kind of magic gate of force political theory, you could start from the beginning. Everything is unknown with Brentano, Husserl, or Heidegger, or Gestalt psychology, Gestalt vision, or Alexius Meinong. It seemed before that we knew everything, but what we knew was totally dominated by only one paradigm, by liberal paradigm, by modern paradigm. If we pass through this gate, we could reread all the authors, all the school. We could find a new our own identity in the Western philosophy and outside of it. And education, what is about education? I think now education, liberal education, is something like purely totalitarian censorship, as I have experienced in the Soviet time, Soviet Union, because everything we dealt with in the education in the Soviet time were totally impregnated by communist ideology. Every word was used only in one sense, and the context and the use and the forms and the concepts and the theory, everything should agree with the main ideological principles of communism. And now something like that is with liberal education. It is radically totalitarian, more and more every day. It is totally intolerant, because if you don't agree with their understanding of tolerance, you are fascist immediately, you are censored, you are cancelled, and so on. Dante is cancelled, Hegel is cancelled, everything not liberal is cancelled, but liberalism of the first stage as well is cancelled. I think Heidegger soon, not Heidegger, von Hayek soon will be considered Nazi and German racist and something. Hayek, who was one of the founding father of neoliberalism, with evolution from him, from Hayek to Popper, and from Popper to Soros, we have total transformation of mutation of liberalism, starting from the normal highbrow aristocratic liberalism von Hayek to this rabid, full of hatred to everybody who disagrees, form of Soros left totalitarian liberalism that is communist. I think, I presume, by historical studies, that in National Socialist Germany as well, there was the kind of ideological censorship, and now liberal censorship in our time, it is something like that. So education, it is not something that is independent. Education translate, as Foucault has said, a kind of power, the code of power. And liberal are very, very conscious and very, very responsible to take this code of power, that is education, in their between their teeth, not in the hands. So they are as angry wild beasts who take education and their teeth, and because that is precisely that is the fundamental aspect, fundamental base of their rule. So I think purely that forced political theory as the gate to the alternative is as well a kind of educational war, the war for the open education, for the war for anti-dogmatic, anti-totalitarian way of education. And I think that we need to promote any kind of alternative form of education, alternative in front of what liberal impose on us. So, and at the same time, there is very interesting thing. We have started our conversation with the image that where the logos of Platonian logos of Plato, logos of Plato was, Heidegger has discovered the abyss, the nothing, the black hole, and not the temple of the logos. So I think something like that, but in the different proportions and different measures, we could say about modern educational system. This educational system, the more is controlled by liberals, less it educates anything. So and more it creates the kind of ignorant, perverted from the early age persons with no human freedom anymore. That is programming and not education. That is transformation of human beings into the robots, liberal robots. And after that, there will be logical and natural replacement of them. But in order to get the rule, the power to the robots, we need to transform the human being into the robots, and that is the main goal of liberal education. So robotization is already here with digitalization, with cyber system, and COVID helps to this dehumanization process by the chance, maybe that's just natural coincidence, but it is inscribed in the logic of this destruction of the ties between humans. So dehumanization, that is the goal. It is not just result. It is the goal, and I think that education, it is not about as before, just of to translate the culture. Now we could not translate the culture because liberals they have taken the culture away. They have not only censored a culture, they try to destroy the culture. So they have stolen the culture, and they insist on their education that not create no more create a kind of persons, of cultural persons. That is the mass destruction. I think the modern educational liberal system is genocide of the human spirit, of the human nature, and that is why we should fight for alternative. So we should consider ourselves as educational partisans. So as the partisans of in the Russian first patriotic war against Napoleon that was sung by Leo Tolstoy. This power of Carl Schmitt, who has dedicated to the figure of partisan his very famous one, it seems to me, last book, The Figure of Partisan. We are partisans of education, and we are under constant attacks, deplatforming, canceling, many threats to be get out from educational institutions. But we need to still continue this educational war of the last humans fighting to not only to conserve or to save our cultural roots, but to restore them and to declare the war against the civilization of the end in the name of the civilization of the new beginning.
Amazing presentation of the importance of education. The liberal war against a genuine education is clearly evident from the youngest age of childhood indoctrination up through the institutions of academia and after in the corporate and professional world as well, where you have kind of re-education camps into post-liberal ideology. It's an amazing thing. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've done that's less known in English. So you've had Fourth Political Theory published, some other books, but from what I saw in your bibliography, you have 40, 50 books, not including the Noomachia series of 24 volumes. And I was wondering if you could take the opportunity to say a little bit about, obviously not each of them, but maybe the early works like Paths of the Absolute, Metaphysics of the Gospel, and any works that you think are particularly important to you, but not very well known to an English-speaking audience, or anything from that undiscovered territory of your other books that you'd like to share.
So it is, as you have said, it is quite a big field of interest. So I am very, very happy that my scientific work, ethno-sociology, is translated by you and published in the United States. That is great step, because it shows that my interests are not limited by politics or maybe Heideggerian vision or anti-liberalism. So in my ethno-sociological work, I have dedicated my efforts to study of the types of the society, starting from the most simple ones and to the most complicated, complex ones, as global society and so on, trying to define some rules, some codes of each of this kind of form of society, basing on the works and the theories of many authors, many schools. So it is known. Noomachia is a great project that I have finished in Russia. Only the translation in other languages it just started. That is about Noomachia. It's a kind of idea. I could say some words about that. So when I had idea following Heidegger, precisely following Heidegger in his criticism of Plato, I had idea to propose non-Platonic, non-Apollinian reading of some philosophical phenomena in the Western and partly Eastern thought. And so I have written a book, In the Search of the Dark Logos. That is the 0 volume of Naumachia. Everything Naumachia started from that. My idea was precisely that. Let us try to make phenomenological or Dionysian reading of Hegel, Schelling, and other Dionysian reading of Neoplatonism as well. Dionysian, everything Dionysian was welcome in this book. And I called that Dark Logos, not Apollinian. Alternative logos, existential logos, not essential logos, of immanence, not of transcendence. So that was a kind of application of Heideggerian invitation to create some kind of fundamental ontology whose roots are clearly seen and perceived in the existential moment and the Dasein, without making the rupture, making this kind of break between existential experience and metaphysics. So I've tried to de-gauge, to fix, to find the shape and form and terms to describe this dark logos. And going this way, I have discovered that under concept of Dionysian, Dionysus, of the logos of Dionysus, of Dionysian logos, there was two totally irreducible, totally irreducible, totally separated form of thought, of feeling, of metaphysical and existential and intuitive approach to reality. Two different things. And that was how I have discovered the black logos. That was not dark logos of Dionysus, but I have called it the logos of Cybele. Cybele, great mother of the Phrygian tradition. So that was the beginning of all the project of 24 volumes of Naumachia, because discovering this third logos, all this dualism between Apollo and Dionysus, was transformed in the three elements: Apollo, Dionysus, and Cybele. And Cybele and Dionysus were not the same, because Dionysus was the sun of the midnight, and the Cybele was the midnight. But one thing is to be the sun of the midnight, and the other thing is to be the night. So they are close because there is no sun in the midnight. There is no sun. That is anti-sun in some way, Dionysus. But still, it is the same sun that appears in the beginning of the morning on the sky. So that is something Apollinian that is inside of Dionysus, and that is the difference between the day and night. And the sun links day at night, shining in the day and hiding in the night. But there is difference between who is hiding and where is hiding, who is hiding. And this last difference between who is hiding and where is hiding, who is hiding, that is precisely the difference between dark logos and black logos. And starting from this point, I have developed the concept of three logos, three logoi, in Greek logoi, and I've started to apply these three archetypes, three main form of logos to different tradition, to Indo-European, Western, Eastern, archaic, complex, with theology, without theology, to all kind of societies described as a typology in ethnosociology. And I have come to fantastic conclusions and results. All that is presented in this book, because I have discovered in all civilizations, in all cultures, all three logos. That was fantastic, because normally we think this culture is more logos of Apollo, this culture is more Dionysian, and we ignore Cybele, and so we have very poor schematization of the civilization, of culture, of history, of the time, of space, of anthropology. And if we use three logoi, and if we consider them to be immanent to any culture and any ethnos, we could describe much more correctly many dynamical transformations inside of these cultures and these civilizations, not necessary with external challenge or external intervention. There could be inner inherent transformation that we could explain by this dramatic and agonic coexistence of these three logoi. And that was for me, above all, not only for Western societies, but for African societies, tribes, ethnic groups, and kind of cultures they have constructed in Africa. That was the huge amount of richness of the results. So in spite of some homogeneous black sub-Saharan African population, I have discovered the worlds, the cosmos, not only one cosmos, but many cosmos with different balance of different logos in each tradition. That was the real discovery. And I have dedicated to African logos 2 volumes of this Naumachia, just to make some examples of what Naumachia is. It is seriously very, very, very interesting adventure for myself, intellectual, metaphysical adventure of study of civilizations inside, on the other side of liberal, Eurocentric, materialist and racist European modern vision of the same thing. It is just panhumanism, I would call that. Three logoses, that is the I think the more normal way to study, to explore the diversity and pluralism and richness of human societies. They are different, they are not the same, and the difference that their identity is the more precious aspect of them, and that we should guard, that we should cultivate, that we should defend. In that sense, I am following the line of Lévi-Strauss or Franz Boas. That is about Naumachia. It is a kind of application of anthropological principle of Boas or Lévi-Strauss to these civilizations with the help studied, explored with the help of concepts of three logos. That is more or less all about that. And in the early writings, I in my youth, in the first youth, about 20, when I was 20, I have written the book dedicated more or less to radical subject, because I was very moved by this concept. I didn't publish it because it is not too much mature. It is a little bit childish, too romantic in my eyes. But I continue to develop the concept of radical subjects through all my writings, and I have dedicated to it, to radical subject, my book. So because ideas, they live at other speed than human experience. Some thought demands destiny, or maybe hundreds of years, centuries to be thought through. It is not about the hurry. Some thoughts come immediately, and you are in total possess of all their possible implications and ramifications already present, and some other thoughts are long thoughts that you need to dedicate many time to think them carefully and in a responsible way, maybe more than one human life. That is why there are some schools of philosophy. One starts, the other continues. Finally, maybe the continuators could get to conclusion, or maybe went astray to maybe we can easily as well lose the path of the thought. It's very very thin, very delicate destiny of the thought. So some thoughts I'm thinking through all my life. Some I consider to be immediately solved in their presentation. And for example, the path of absolutes, that is just explanation to the Russian that was written at the end of the 80s. That was the first book dedicated to exposition of René Guénon thoughts. That is more or less the explanation of man and his becoming according to Vedanta, the book of René Guénon, with some parts. The last chapter is dedicated to eschatological aspect, not too much developed in Guénon, but that was in the center of Henri Corbin's philosophy. That is about path of absolute, as well as the hidden agenda of coming closer and closer to the topic of radical subject. I didn't manage to introduce this concept in the path of absolute, but that demanded 20 years more, or 10 years more. And metaphysics of good news, it is a kind of application of the first essay, first effort to first intention to applicate Guénonian concept and metaphysics to Orthodox Christianity. I'm not too happy with the results, but that was the first step how to describe Christian Orthodox tradition, metaphysics, dogmatic theology with Guénonian terms, and as well I have put the problem. In some moment they contradict to each other, Guénon and Orthodox Christianity. And from this moment, when I have finished this book, I was convinced that personally I'm always preferring Orthodox Christianity, with immense respect to Guénon, not against Guénon, but with immense admiration and recognition of total authority of Guénon, but reserving the right not to be in accordance, not to agree with everything he has said. And when some more radical contradiction about, for example, the nature of Jesus Christ concerns in that moment, in other theological dogmatical point, I have seriously decided to stay strong in my tradition, in Christian Orthodoxy, in spite of very seducing thesis of René Guénon. And I have dedicated some book on the light, easy topics like pop culture and the science of time, where I have proposed some hermeneutical reading of the popular Russian pop culture music, very very special, very bad, I would say, or maybe awful pop music of liberal Russia, but I've tried to see through this idiotism a kind of a science of time in Guénonian sense, that is eschatological reading of estrada, of pop music. That was a little bit ironic, I would say, but not too much. And I have dedicated, as well as you know, obviously, many books, not only 2 or 3, about 10 books to geopolitics, to geopolitical thought, to geopolitical philosophy. And as well, I have translated some books or articles of my favorite authors, of Guénon, of Evella, of Heidegger, of Carl Schmitt, of Louis Dumont, of Georges de Mézil, or Eurasianism. As well, I have dedicated to Eurasianism some works, because Eurasianism it was political philosophy more or less comparable with everything that I admire in the Western tradition.
So I hope everybody got a sense from that of what it is to be a productive thinker working in all of these areas that are of interest to you. Now, I have a couple of additional questions about some of what you said. I hope you have a bit more time to devote to this conversation. One is that you've used a lot of mystical type symbols and metaphors about crossing a threshold, about initiation. And even in your book on the Dark Logos, there's a study of mystics of various traditions. And I get the sense from what I've heard about the radical subject that it also has something along the lines of a mystical initiatory experience itself. So, how do you see mysticism? Do you regard yourself as a mystic? Is that an adequate category with which to think about where you're coming from? And was there some moment for you that lies beneath all of these other insights, intuitions, and discoveries, some breakthrough insight that everything else is in the service of or in search for? Have you had, how do you see that issue of mysticism, the mystical experience, and its relationship to your work?
So first of all, I consider the mysticism as one of legitimate form of human culture and human thought. More than that, I don't like to regard mysticism as something completely separated from rationality, because when we ask ourselves, when we start to explore the roots of our rationality, we are coming to very special, very unexpected solutions, because as is clear in the Plotinus, Neoplatonical thinker, that in the center of the rational thought lies the madness. So the rationality is the product of irrationality. So there is some inner irrationality that manifests itself through the rational activity, and we need to keep the balance. So when we stress too much rational aspect, so this rationality becomes paranoid. So we reject so much everything that is irrational or intuitive or mystical. So we get mad as mad scientists, for example, and we lose what is good, what is bad. We are being too engaged in the rationality results in losing any rationality. Results in the post-rational madness. When we try to stress on the other side everything that is in a kind of psychological and emotional, not clear. So we become as well invalid and kind of handicapped persons. So because without rationality, we as well become irrational. So there should be kind of balance. For myself, I have made many efforts, and I think with some positive and successful efforts, to say the same thing in the mystical language, in the academic, philosophical, or scientific language. And I have succeeded in that easily, because it is a mystical or rational approach are not alternative. For example, in the Middle Ages, that was clear for everybody. So the same authors dedicated their treatise to the minerals, to the stones, to the chemical reactions and transformations, and the same authors wrote about the angels, about intellectual essences on the same breath. So mysticism is necessarily an element of human being. So and just balance between mystic and rational that we need. That was always. For example, Heidegger starts with purely academic philosophical tradition, phenomenology, and little by little he arrives at the point when his language is almost the same as the great mystic of Tauler or Soiza or Eckhart or Novalis, and his love to poetry. It is precisely his betrays his huge attraction to mysticism. So most rational persons were as well the most radical mystics. So I don't think that when it put or limit the mysticism in some special situation. Mysticism is the part of the rationality, and rationality is the part of the mystical and sacred form. So that was why, for example, studying archaic society, I was totally satisfied with knowledge of their myths. If I know the myth of some society, if I know the logic of this myth, I could clearly and easily, more or less easily, deduce from it rational version, if the rationality is open to the mysticism, if rationality doesn't despise mysticism, but accept that as legitimate form of thought. So we could think on both level at the same time. So materialism, it is quite opposite. So in order to get to such understanding of mystical dimensional of the thought, we need to sacrifice materialism. So we need to sacrifice the nihilism of the spirit. We should recognize the kind of autonomy or sovereignty of the thought, of the spirit, of the subject. And that is very important. But for me, being not being materialist, and that is quite easy. So I don't think that I am too mystical, for example. Just I use the language that many Russian, or almost all Russian philosophers used. If we read Solovyov, Florensky, Bulgakov, Berdyaev, it is very, very common to Russian to mix these ways of thought without opposing them, without denying the legitimacy of rationality. And my son, with whom sometimes we discuss many things. He has accused me recently of defense of two great defense of rationality, and he has said you are defending, you're promoting re-enlightenment because the liberal rationalism and modern relationalism is now, and it's the final stage of marasmatic irrationality, as we see. So rationality is abandoned by everybody, and it is to us, traditionalists or mystics, to save rationality, because we have nothing against rationality. We just need to put the rational qualities and logical procedures and normal academic scientific way of thought in the just proportions, in the normal limits, and these limits were overcome with the modernity pretending to be exclusively rational and anti-mystical, in the same measure began to lose its rational aspect. And now when we see as main academic philosophy, some clearly crazy, clinical crazy people, so among postmodernists or critical realists who are just junky, purely schizophrenic persons, and they are very proud to be there, perverted, schizophrenic, junky, deploring their incapacity to save rationality, and don't hiding their hatred for rationality. That is the result of the excessive overestimation of the rationality itself. So I think rationality is something valuable and something interested, important, and it should be saved against liberals who and with their system of education that became really crazy in the last decades and the last period. So being too much rational, that leads to kind of irrationality, and to have the sane portion of symbolical vision or metaphysical attitude that helps to save rationality. My son has accused me to be a defender of this re-enlightenment or traditionalist enlightenment process, and to betray the chaos and this irrationality of some of my early writings.
One thing I was wondering whether you could address, you're, I think, best known among the disciplines that you work on, probably for geopolitics, philosophy, increasingly, political theory, certainly, ethnosociology when the book came out. But I noticed in the last year or two that you've had some involvement with the theater in Russia. And I was wondering if you could say a little bit about what your project is in and around the theater.
You're totally right. So some years ago, I always was attracted by theater. I have read some articles about theater. I had friends as some directors of theaters and artists during all my life. So I was always attracted by it. But 2 years ago, when my friend Eduard Bayakov was appointed to be director of the main national Russian Moscow theater that is called MKHAT, Moscow Academical Art Theater, MKHAT, the main, founded by Stanislavski and Nemirovich Danchenko. It is number one after Bolshoi. So it is number two among dramatical theaters, number one. But it is famous Russian theater, and I have started there the cycle of lectures dedicated to the ontology and anthropology of the theater. So step by step, we have decided with Edward Boyakov, this director of the theater, a famous director and founder of Golden Mask Prize in Russia, and we have started new school of MHAT, new school of theater. And I have just finished the first master class, 1 year of master education dedicated to theater. So I have elaborated the program for this revolutionary education, not exactly anti-liberal, but without any regard to the laws of tolerance that liberals try to impose on us by violence. That is the free education, really free education. So you could have your own idea, liberal or not. But if you say to liberals that someone has the right, legitimate right to be illiberal, you are immediately done. You stop. That's everything. Everything is said. So you are criminal. You should be cancelled, censored, and killed by them. Because if you accept the very possibility that there can exist something illiberal, so you are doomed. But being in Russia, it is not so violent yet. Maybe we could stay a little longer here. And I have put the principles of the real freedom of thought in this school. So it is not political, absolutely. That is about theater. And my idea was to get to the roots of the theater, to dramatic, tragical art, not only following Nietzsche, but coming to the roots of the Greek tragedy, and exploring more and more the roots of the tragedy. I have discovered so many interesting things that, for example, theater and the tragedy has given to Christian culture not only external aspects of art or some music and so on, but the main message of the pre-Christian tragical theater was the suffering of the human divine being, the suffering imposed by these two natures, the divine nature and human nature, and this mixture of the hero, what I'm calling now heroology, the logic, heroology. That is neologism in Russia as well, geroiologia. It is the vision when in the center of the structure of the society, of something, of the events, of the presentation, is put not human, neither human nor divine creature, the creature of mixture nature, and trying to get to the roots of this of the Greek tragedy. I am dealing with the actors and actresses, studying. Some of them are professional already. Some of them just begin their career in the theater. Together, we started to revival this tragical original being of the theater, the being of the theater, ontology of the theater that was hidden during the history of the theater. It is my idea is to get to the essence of what theater was and is in its eternal type, as something. The philosophical theater or theater of eternity, and I just have finished the first acquaintance with Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles, and my students, they try to embody the archetypes of the classical Greek author, and that for them was totally new experience. They never had any suspect that theater can be such, that it is about such huge spiritual and metaphysical experience, inner experience, transformative experience. And for them, there's something more than just art or just profession. That is becoming for them the new, discovery of new dimension of life, because we have as well remarked with my friend Eduard Bayakov that most of not only artists don't understand what they pronounce, they say on the scene, that many directors don't understand what was about in the Eschyle, in the pieces, dramatic pieces they try to represent. They try to pervert. They try to give some individual and new iconoclastic reading for the theater. It is possible, but not the price to lose the being of the theater. So if you are a genius, you could make improvisation as in jazz. But if you idiot that doesn't understand what is it all about, it is not improvisation. That is very that's a pity. It is something shameful, I think. So we could transform classical themes in something different, but we need to do that in correct way to understand the depth of the tragedy. We need to understand the depth of any word, any term used by Aeschylus or Euripides, a context, theology of Greek world vision, so religious vision, ethical vision. We need to understand what is all about, what that was all about, and only with that we could transpose or translate the real tragedy into our worlds. Maybe that will be totally new, and that will be for sure. But in order to create something new, we need to understand what was in the beginning. So beginning in the tragedy is as well important as the beginning in the philosophy. For me, these three great tragical poets, they are almost the same. They have the same role as Plato and Aristotle.
You said something just now that I think will be helpful to people who are reading or rereading the Fourth Political Theory. It's a point that comes up in the course I'm doing on the book, which is where you look at the postmodern, post-human, confused, genderless android robot type. In other words, man at the end of history, post-man. And when you raise the question about how to oppose or what to oppose to the post-human, you don't say that we need to reassert a past form of humanity. We don't need to reassert some previous configuration of what it is to be human, but rather, and this must be strange to people who are reading the text for the first time, you say that we need to have recourse to a non-human being, and you mentioned there the angel. And something that jumped out to me when I was reading those passages is that you say the angel is neither human nor divine. And now what you just said in this answer about the theater as well is that there's this something which is neither human nor divine that comes through on the stage, that comes through the actors, and that comes through the whole performance and production. So if people are trying to get a hold on what it might mean to talk about a non-human, non-divine angel in the context of political post-anthropology and political anthropology, what you said about the theater is a very enticing and interesting connection.
Exactly. That interest for theater is not casual. It's just kind of inner growth of some philosophical ideas. You are right, and that is very important. That we regard this passage from last humans to the new robots with last humans' eyes, and that is not enough. If when we do that, we just poor and innocent and totally powerless conservatives. We could not afford nothing. We could just observe how they transform us into the post-humans, and to deplore that. That's already something to deplore, to say, oh, how powerful this conspiracy elite are, and so on, transforming us in the COVID prisoners, and after that in the totally controlled post-human objects. But I think that is this situation that is absolutely eschatological. I agree, that is the radical the loss of the last loss of the mankind of its humanity. But that is as well the new possibility, a new horizon that is open, and that is not anymore about human cannot save themselves in that situation. They need something else. But we should hope on God, but we should do that in an active way, and we could overcome us. We could strive to get outside in the direction of God. We could not be sure that it's wrong, that it is right direction. Maybe it is wrong, but we should get out of this poor human or last human conditions. And exactly, we need some new figure, new type, new gestalt in order to be active, to be conscious, to be prepared to participate in the mystery of the end, the mystery of the lawlessness. But it is very, very difficult for normal people, because normal people are too much engaged in what they consider to be natural destiny, or something that is inevitable, something objective, natural, and so on. But it is not. It is constructed. But in order to awake to this this artificial nature of the eschatology that is man-made, or evil angels made reality. So, but it is artificially made reality, and if it is made, if the facts are something that is made in Latin, if someone has made these facts, we could make other facts, alternative facts, and these alternative facts should be done with this leap to something more than the human weeping about their destiny in the globalist elite-dominated world. We should be. We should be joyful. We should follow Nietzsche as well. We should dance and fight, and not only weep about our poor destiny. Yes, the destiny is very tragic, much more horrible than most of us presume. But that is not reason that is one of the reasons to get more and more excited, I would say.
Professor Aleksandr Dugin, we've had a chance today to go over the philosophical dimension of your project, the educational side of your project, and perhaps we could leave it for another conversation, your view on practical geopolitics, on various hot button issues in American and world politics. I wanted to give our listeners and myself a chance to learn more about the big picture of your thinking as it concerns mysticism and theater, your various other books. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your work. And I hope to have you back on the show again.
Thank you. You're welcome. And thank you, dear Michael, for being so strong among people who are interested in my ideas and stay strong in your freedom. You can choose everything. So I think that is most admirable feature, to be free. When when you are free with everybody agree with you and you agree with them, it's not the freedom. Freedom always is a kind of effort. And thank you very much for everything you have done to promote interest for my ideas for forced political theory and other topics. Thank you.
All right, everybody. This is Professor Aleksandr Dugin. Read his books, listen to his lectures. There's a lot to learn. There's an endless amount to learn, and it's worth it more than anything. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.